Thank you to Professor Rouget for helping us make this panel possible. We are grateful to have three incredible female leaders here to talk about their experience running for office and having a successful campaign. And all three of them are at different stages in their political career. So this is really exciting that we get to learn from them today. I just wanted to say one of our inspirations for this event was really over the last 2 years. I've had quite a few female students come to the center and say, I want support and resources on how to run for office. This is something I'm seriously considering after I graduate from Salem State University. And so I think this topic is really important, and I think we can learn so much from these three women who are here today. So thank you so much for attending, and please feel free to ask a ton of questions. I hope you put questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to get to them throughout our time together. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists today. So we have Bopha Malone, who is the select board member of Bedford, Massachusetts, Vilma Martinez-Dominguez, who is the mayoral candidate for the city of Lawrence, and last but certainly not least, our state senator and SSU alumni, Senator Joan Lovely. And so I'm going to have each panelist share their story today, and then we will have about 4 panel questions, and then we'll hand it off to you students to ask your own questions. So let's get started. Bopha, tell us a little bit about your journey running for office and what inspired you to run.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here this morning. It's an honor to be a part of this panel with Vilma and Senator Lovely. I never thought of running for office. I've actually, for me personally, just a little bit about myself. I work at Enterprise Bank. I love what I've been doing, helping families get into their homes and helping people create success by building their business and expanding on their businesses. And in addition to that, I consider myself a community activist. I love, I serve on nonprofit organizations such as Middlesex Community College, Lowell General Hospital, Women Working Wonders, Communities for Restorative Justice, just to name a few. And all of the things that I have, along the way, just where, I felt like I love my job. I love making a difference. What inspired me to run in 2016 was when I saw an article about Congresswoman Nikki Songus retiring, and basically just every morning I would go to work. I read newspaper article. I take what pertains to me, and I put it down. And for some reason, this article, what it says, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And the more that I thought about it, the more that my heart just kept on beating and beating and beating. And I knew that I had to get in the race. And so I was a candidate for Congress, actually, in the 3rd District in 2013. And as Caitlin had said, now I'm a select board member here in Bedford. And if you were to tell me any of this when I was a little girl living in the Thai refugee camp, that one day I would come to the US and, just have the life that I have now, to be able to go to school, have a good education without a lot of debts, and, to be able to have a great job where I get to help people, people that used to help my parents to be able to create success and build a success, and to teach them about financial literacy, and to help young students, to get into college, and to help make sure that they're able to stay and be able to, have a good experience, and things like that. I wouldn't have believed it. So just to take you back a little to Cambodia, where I, 1975 through 1979, my parents actually lived through the Khmer Rouge regime. And for those of you that don't know about the Khmer Rouge regime. It's basically a group of communist party that took over the country during those years, and they killed about 2 million of their own people through starvation, torture, and murder. And my parents actually experienced all that, seeing their friends and families being murdered and killed, basically, because these people just had a different political idea. And so even though I was born right after the war and there wasn't any war anymore, the country was still not safe. So my first memory was actually my mom walking me through the jungle from Cambodia to Thailand to escape. So my childhood was, that I remember, was at the refugee camp in Thailand. And although, it was safer for us, growing up in Thailand, it was scary because every night we would go to bed hearing sounds of gunfires and bombings. And every night I would hear my parents' plan of which child to take, my brother or me, and, and where we would meet. And a lot of nights where we actually lived in this hut where we had a hole in our house, and we would, a lot of nights where we would go under to hide, and we slept there. So that was how we lived for 6 years in the Thai refugee camp, praying every night that we would have a chance to come to the US. And that chance actually came when I was 9 years old. And so when we first came to the US, I lived in Pennsylvania. And if you know anything about Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, you would know that we stuck out like sore thumbs because we were the only Asian family. We came here with nothing but the clothes on our back, speaking zero English. And luckily I had great teachers who took the time to, spend with me after hours, teaching me English. But it was really hard for my parents to acclimate because they came here with a lot of trauma and couldn't find a job to support us. So because of that, they got connected with some friends in Massachusetts, and we moved to Massachusetts and we were able to find a job. So, and growing up in Lynn, I grew up in Lynn. Obviously US is so much better than where we came from, but at the same time, it was tough for me as a child because of the fact that my parents would work all the time. And as a young child, needing support with school, and also being taught as an Asian girl that, my place is in the home, doing household chores and things like that. I was often very depressed and lonely and didn't know where to turn to for help. Luckily in high school, I got involved with Girls Inc., which was an organization that inspires girls to become strong, smart, and bold. And they taught me things that I didn't know, and they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And because of that, I was able to get into college, complete it, and get into work. So as I mentioned before, I had no plans of running, but because of the fact that, I had this heartbeat moment, and I felt that, um, it was one of those things where I felt like I didn't understand why I had that moment, but I think along the way in working at Enterprise Bank and serving these organizations and having lived through some of the experiences, I felt like, to serve at Middlesex and to hear that students were, in addition to working multiple jobs just to be able to get a good education, at the time they were scared. And then, serving on Lowell General Hospital, hearing patients needing help, but at the same time, they don't have, they have to choose between money for their medication or feeding their families. So things like this, where I felt like 30 years ago when I came to America, that's how life was for us. But 30 years later, you would think that things have gotten better, but instead it's not. But I think I had this feeling where I felt like things weren't getting better, but it's also going backwards. So because of that, I felt like, you know what? My parents risked their lives. My mother risked her life to walk me through that jungle to give me an opportunity. And I have had that opportunity. And I feel that, with that opportunity, even though I was taught, don't get into politics, you come here, you work hard, you keep your head down. I felt that it's important with opportunities that if you know that if you see these things that you have a chance to be able to bring these issues to the table and to be able to help make the changes, and why not? So that's why I put my name. I threw my hat in the ring. So I'll end there for now, and then if you can ask questions and things like that after.
Thank you so much, Bopha, for your story. We really appreciate it. Now, Vilma, you are in the process of running currently. So tell us a little bit about your inspiration and your journey thus far.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. um, Thank you so very much for this very special invitation. To me, Salem State has yet another meaning because my oldest daughter graduated from Salem State in 2013. So thank you very much for that formal education and the opportunity given to her to be there. I'm Vilma Martinez-Dominguez. Many people know me as Vilma Laura. I think Vilma Laura was the name that I had, throughout my profession and for over 30 years, but life changes and you change and new beginnings and a new name. So I am actually really excited about this race. This is a historic race for me. And for our community, because there has never been a Latina mayor in the city of Lawrence, nor in the state. So this is a very important time for us in this city. Who am I? I'm basically, I like to bring my whole self to the table. I was born in this country, but I am the daughter of a Dominican and Puerto Rican parents. And as a baby, I was taken and was raised in both islands and didn't return until I was 17. So you can imagine not knowing, I did not know English at that point. And so both a lot of your experiences are probably shared by many immigrants and even many women, and the whole situation around the expectations, with role, about our role in society. I am the mother of 3 adult children. My children are 30, 26, and 22. So hence my slogan, right time. That's one of the reasons why my slogan is the right time. I am the grandmother of 2 beautiful baby girls and a third one on her way. So yeah, they're getting older, not me. I am a wife, a woman of faith, very strongly. I'm a Episcopalian. I love that faith because they're very open-minded, very much into women's issues and very much into social justice. So I found my place. I'm the daughter and the oldest of 6 siblings. So I think that's where my great sense of responsibility and leadership and vocation to serve came from. There was a lot of expectations of me. I have been an activist who has dedicated her whole life to serving the Lawrence community. I have lived here for close to 30 years. I have worked here for close to 30 years. I worked a lot with social justice and gender and health equity through my life and my journey at the YWC of Greater Lawrence, now YWC of Northeastern Mass. I was there for close to 25 years and served in every single role you can think of within the domestic violence and the sexual assault and women's health work. I did a lot of work with survivors. I worked with them in any space, in the courts, in the housing, advocacy, you name it. I did it. I did a lot of activism, a lot of walking on the street with our Taking Back the Night very loudly, and our very famous Brides March. I don't know if any of you know it, but it's the 3rd largest or the 2nd largest in the United States. And it's basically in memory of a Dominican woman who was killed the day of her wedding. I've done a lot of that work, and I've worked always focused on with the most vulnerable population of residents in our city. And then in the last almost 4 years, I have been working within city government as a community development director. So I was able to bring sort of that grassroots lens and that social justice and equity lens into the work that I'm doing, which could be very difficult at times because bureaucracies of federal government and state government and local government sometimes make it very difficult for you to sort of be flexible in certain ways. So, but I have done that. I really focus on affordable housing and public infrastructure and small business development, public services, public, nonprofits, anything you name it. And I also co-founded the Mayoral Task Force. which is very well known nationally. It's a health coalition that focuses on health equity. So my family came to this country, returned to this country, I want to say, in their late 80s. And by 89, my family had moved to Lawrence. I stayed behind. But soon after, I found myself in Lawrence. I love the city. I think it was the place where I found that I belong, where a piece of me, a piece of what I've left behind, I was able to find it here. I have, we faced many challenges, and I think that that's what has propelled me to activism and to run. Challenges around, I know what it feels like to live in substandard housing. I know what it feels like to live in overcrowded housing, having, jobs that don't pay enough, and still as women, we're not up to par with men, particularly women of color. I know what language barrier means, but that didn't stop me. 3 days after I got to this country, I started working at the age of 17. So it was a struggle. I know I have experienced oppression and all the intersectionalities of oppression, sexism, ageism, and you name it. I have felt it and I have lived it. Formal education was very difficult for me to do because I didn't have the language. And I thank the YWCA, my former boss, because she really saw something in me and pushed me. I know what transportation, and lacking transportation means, and walking to work in the middle of the snow for 2-3 miles. That did not stop me. And I know what it is to be able to have to leave half of your paycheck for childcare. But I did it anyways, because to me, it was important about feeling valuable and feeling like I can contribute to my community. So I worked 2 jobs while in college. I knew that from an early age, my children, the only thing I could give them was that formal education. And so I worked 2 jobs for 19 years to get my 3 kids through high school and through college. So I can very much relate, even though I'm a citizen, I can very much relate to that immigrant sentiment, that immigrant experienced. And I think that it has been these things that have motivated me, but it's this enormous love for my city. It's this gratitude. Oh, I get chills. It's this gratitude that I feel for my city. It's just a place where we found home. It's a place where I've raised my family, worship, create a community, become a homeowner. Like, this is where I want to be able to continue to give. And so I want to be able to continue to do that for my city. And that's the reason why I did it. And I want to be able to, I've always been focused on inequality. And I want to be able to provide or create an environment where everyone can thrive, where everyone can prosper, where people can have access to resources and access to information and have the same opportunities that I've had, good or bad, the ugly, everything, so that they can actually create a community and find community here. And I want to create a community that's inclusive. There has been a lot of divisiveness in our community where, it's the North and the South, is the Caucasians and the Latinos, is the, like, I want to break away from that and create one community. And I think that it can be done if everybody works together. So I'm going to stop here. I know there's going to be a lot of questions afterwards, but that's who I am. This is why I'm running.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's beautiful. So I'm going to pass it on to Senator Lovely now. And I know you've not only run as a senator, but also as a city councilor and acting mayor. So you have a lot of knowledge to share as well. So I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you. And I just want to say how inspiring it has been to listen to Bopha and Vilma's journeys, into the kind of the political arena, but where their backgrounds. Thank you so much for sharing. It really is amazing. And, I think it's our backgrounds and our experiences that propel us to run for office. Now, Bopha at the beginning of her remarks said that she really wasn't interested in running for office. And I will admit I wasn't either. Back in my 20s and 30s, I was getting married. I was starting a family. I really wasn't that interested. But I'll tell you what changed that. My children were 6, 8, and 10. They're now 29, 31, and 33. And I too am a grandmother, an almost 6-month-old granddaughter. So I'm just so thrilled about that. But when my children were 6, 8, and 10, I would take them to the playground, our nearby playground. And it was the same equipment that my husband played on when he was a child. That one really hot metal slide and a couple of those old rubber swings. That was it, a dirt playground. I don't even think there was a basketball court there at the time, but it was close by. So I went to my neighbors and said, what do you think? I think that we could form, a neighborhood committee, like a playground committee, and let's approach the city about rebuilding this playground. So we did. My neighbors and I, and in fact, my my son-in-law's mother, they live next door. She and I headed this committee, and we approached the city. We worked with the city councilor, then the ward councilor, and we worked with the then mayor and the planning department. And over the course of a year, we planned this playground. We sat down with the planning department and did all the plans. We identified the funding source through the budget, and over the course of a weekend in the fall, we built a playground over Saturday and Sunday. We had like over 100 volunteers. It was the most positive experience I had ever been through. It was a ton of work. And then after that weekend, we had this gorgeous playground for the whole neighborhood, all the neighborhood kids. And it really became a gathering place for families. And so for a park that really kind of was, not well used, it turned into this beautiful area. And it's actually been, so now that's a few years ago. It's been rebuilt since then. They've actually updated the equipment. So that park is really, really used. So that really made me interested in my community. And so I went to the then mayor and asked if I could be appointed to, it was a neighborhood improvement advisory committee. I had improved my neighborhood. I wanted to help other people improve their neighborhoods. So the mayor appointed me, and I did that for about a couple of years. And then a city council seat became available in my ward, Ward 3. Now, my husband, I will tell you, when I met him and we were dating, he was the Ward 3 counselor. So he used to get a lot of phone calls, and he used to, go to a lot of meetings. And I was, why do you want to do that? But now I knew why he wanted to do that. So I went to him and said, I'd like to run. He said, are you sure? And I said, yes, I know exactly, what's ahead of me because I saw you do it. And he said, okay. And so he helped me, and I was elected in 1997 to the city council, Salem City Council. And I held that seat for 3 terms. And it was a lot of work, I will tell you. I went to a lot of meetings. I don't do anything halfway. I'm in it. I'm totally in. That's the way, that's the commitment you make. And I have to tell you, every 2 years when I run, I check in with myself to make sure I'm up to the commitment of being all in, in a political office. So I held that seat for 6 years, and then I ran at large. I said, I think I'd like to be able to help the entire city. And I held that seat for 9 years. And during that time, I was acting mayor. Anytime the mayor would be out of town, it's required by our charter that you appoint actually the council president, and I was council president twice, to be the acting mayor. And I would tell you, it really was ceremonial. But I did sign the warrants to allow people to get paid. So that was very important. And I really enjoyed that experience. Now, I will also tell you, at that time, I had not finished my education. I had gone to a 2-year, post high school at Essex Aggie. It was that's when the Aggie was both a high school and a college. And I got my associate's degree, ready, in large animal science. I wanted to be a veterinarian. But when I met my husband, I had gone up to UMass for a year, and I didn't really like the big school experience, to be honest with you. So I came home, met my husband, got married, started a family. So I had that associate's degree, but I did not advance my education, and that became really important. And I'll tell you why. In 2004, I'm on the city council, and our state rep at the time, Mike Ruane, was retiring after 30 years. And he was a dear friend and mentor. And he said, why don't you run for my seat? I said, okay. So I ran with a bunch of other people. And it came down to 2 of us, myself and now the president of Salem State University, John Keenan. And I lost that race. So I look at Bopha, who also ran and lost a race. I think it's not a bad thing to lose a race. You learn a lot from it. You really do. I didn't walk away as a sore loser. I walked away as, well, you know what? That was an incredible experience. I worked really hard and I reassessed where I was at that point. And I said, you know what? I need to finish my education. Because I will tell you at the time in the press, I was the nice realtor housewife who was running against an attorney. And, I realized that, okay, I need to finish my education. So I did. Nights and weekends, went back to Salem State, got that degree in 2006, and then went to law school and got my law degree in 09, passed the bar, and then started to practice law. And I will tell you, having my education, at least my bachelor's degree, really did give me some integrity, and people took me a little more seriously, to be honest with you. So I then continued on the city council until, let's see, I'm trying to remember until 2012, when now State Senator Fred Berry was retiring from his seat after 30 years. And I was encouraged to run. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. It's 5 communities. It's Beverly, Danvers, Peabody, Salem, and Topsfield. And I've knocked on a lot of doors, knocked on over 10,000 doors. I will tell you, it's not easy. And Vilma, I give you a tremendous amount of credit. It's not easy to run a campaign in a pandemic. I have not, last year I ran for re-election. I did not have an opponent. I did a virtual campaign, but Vilma is running an amazing, I'm sure, and working really hard to run a virtual campaign in a pandemic. It's not an easy thing to do. I almost think it's easier knocking on 10,000 doors. But people want to meet you. They want to know what you're about. Who said it? All politics is local. Tip O'Neill, he was absolutely right. All politics is local. So now have the incredible fortune to be in the Senate. I'm in my 5th term now, and I have a great opportunity this session to be the chair of the Women's Caucus. And the Women's Caucus is actually promoting women running for office. We want to see more women run for office and be successful. And we are at 62 women now in the legislature out of 200. So it's 31%, our highest number ever. We want to grow that. And you know what, when the Q&A comes up, we can talk about why women don't run and what some of the obstacles are to running. It's harder for a woman, I believe, to run for office than a man. That's just how I believe and how I've observed over the last, 22 plus years in office. But it's been a great experience. I'm so proud to be in this seat and to be representing the 2nd Essex District. And I will tell you, I have an amazing staff. We are in leadership, and I say we, even though I'm the assistant majority leader, I include my staff in everything that I do, because they completely support me. My chief of staff, Johanna Wakeland, is actually in this meeting, in this event. So I wanted to give her a special shout out because we don't do this alone. We're pretty busy, and we want to be able to accomplish quite a bit. I will tell you the number one thing that we do in my office, besides policy, is constituent services. And I learned that as a city councilor. When your phone rings, somebody's on the other end, they need something. And it's usually probably pretty dire. Right now, the number one call in the office is for unemployment assistance. So many people are still unemployed because of the pandemic. And because there was a tremendous amount of fraud across the country with unemployment systems, including here in Massachusetts, because we have the most generous unemployment benefits in the country. So we were particularly hard hit. People are having to wait for their benefits. And if you're out of work, you don't have any funds coming in. Most people are paycheck to paycheck. Not a lot of people have some savings to rely on. So this is what we do. We connect the dots in state government to make sure that people can get the help that they need. And so I'm going to stop there and look forward to the Q&A. And thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to just start with the first question, and whoever feels compelled to share first, just jump right in. So the first question is, what advice would you give to students before considering running for office?
Can I answer? Yes. So yes, Senator Lovely, it has been quite challenging to run a campaign in the midst of COVID when we are the third one in the state with the highest numbers. But we also have used, I just wanted to follow up to that, also have used that in my platform and my work to be able to talk to people. And I'm really excited about it because we have figured out a way to get around all these things and actually are leading the pack when it comes to fundraising. I have raised over $100,000 already. So to me, as someone, yes, as someone who cannot do direct ask for money because I'm a public employee, I think we're doing fantastic. So I'm very grateful. What would I give? What kind of advice? I tell you right now, this is my first race ever. I have been in other races. I have supported other races, never a female race. I think Elizabeth Warren was the only one where I did some support, but it wasn't really, I couldn't do much at the time in my life. But I will say get involved in your community. You need to have a pulse. You need to understand. You need to go to events. You need to go to the restaurant. You need to go to the local bodega. You need to talk to people. You need to talk to go to the senior center. You have to have a good understanding of what your community is like. What are the demographics? What are the needs? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? I think that you also need that commitment that Senator Lovely's talked about. This is a huge commitment. This is a huge investment of your time. And I'm fully aware of it, but I have never been known for sitting, or having one job. I've always had two jobs. So volunteer at a church, board, and I have been at many boards. I have never sat down. It's not in my nature. So to me, it comes naturally. Support other campaigns. Definitely. I think it gives you a perspective because there's a culture within the city and then there's a culture within, politics, right? And there's a culture within campaigns. And so as a woman, I think that I wish I would have been part of the last mayor in our city was 21 years ago, the last female mayors. And they were back to back, which was Mayoral Candidate and Patricia Darling. Those are the last two women. I wish I was around enough to be part of those. Register to vote. If you have not registered to vote, that's the most basic thing. And be engaged. Go out to vote. Right now, I'm looking at my super voters. Those are the people that I want to talk to first. They are the ones who are making, they're the ones who vote for everything. Those are the people that I want to focus on. Be engaged. Develop relationships, and most importantly, find mentors. Especially as a woman running for office, the expectations are so different. I mean, I was already, the minute I mentioned I wanted to run, it's like, okay, don't wear this, wear that, don't wear this makeup, don't wear these earrings. And I wonder if that's the same case for men, if they're running, if there's all these pressures. And today, if you notice, I wear my big earrings because the first thing they told, I love big hoops. The first thing they said to me is, don't wear big earrings. Don't wear, like, you know what? No, I'm bringing my whole personality, my whole self to this, to the space. I have been through a lot. I know. So I think that those are the most important things. And be on board, serve on boards. I think it's important because you get to sort of see a different perspective and have a different experience. And I'll stop here so that others can share.
I think in addition to everything, I totally agree with Vilma on, I would add a couple more in terms of, if you know that you're interested in running, kind of study the office, knowing, because it's, whether it's a local level or state or national, it's what you care about. First of all, like, what are your passions? What changes you want to make, and what office is right for you? I think trying to understand what office is right for you, and at that point in your life, like when Senator Lovely had mentioned going all in, because you can't go halfway in when you're running campaigns. You have to be all in, and knowing, in terms of where you are right now, are you able to make that time, that commitment? Because once you do it, you're all in. And then I totally, Wilma had already said this, but mentorship, I think it's so important. Like, when you're when you know whether you're just thinking about it or knowing that you might want to run, reach out to the folks that are already doing it and ask questions, and maybe even touring their office and understanding that this is the work, and this is and talking through that. And I think then you would understand what you're getting yourself into, how much you can commit, and and kind of alleviate some of the challenges that you might have.
And I'm going to mirror exactly what Vilma and Bopha said. For me, when I was first running, I actually met, so this is for the Senate. I went and met all the mayors, town managers, people who are really entrenched in town and city government. I met with business leaders. I met with health leaders. I think I had a meeting a day leading up to my campaign to really, again, get the pulse of what's going on in each industry, with the schools. So I really had a good idea, because I know Salem. I live in Salem. I grew up in Beverly, so I know Beverly. But Danvers, Peabody, and Topsfield, I didn't know. I didn't have connections there. So I really needed to go out and meet people, tell them who I was, and why I was running, and create and forge good relationships, which I have now. I will tell you though, a mentor is huge, and I'll tell you my story about my mentor. I didn't find her; she found me. She saw that I was running, and she saw that I was hesitating, that I wasn't. It's not that I wasn't committed to running. I was holding back. I had some fear, I think it was. I'm running for state senate. And really, I had run for state rep and lost that experience. That wasn't holding me back. I was saying, here's another opportunity. But there was something holding me back. And she sat me down and said, I want to mentor you. And she was a business leader in the community. She's since passed away. We miss her dearly. And she mentored me. And she gave me some self-confidence that was lacking, that was missing. And I will be forever in debt to her. And again, she found me. But if you have someone that you trust, that you can talk to about anything, any part of the campaign, but really about any part, you can hire people. When you're running for an office, you can. I had to hire some campaign staff, and I had someone who worked with me with messaging my campaign. So what my pamphlets would look like, what the messaging was, what I stood for. You can hire people, but if you have someone special in your life, even if this, and I didn't know this woman really well when she approached me, but she became one of my dearest friends.
And if you don't mind, Caitlin, I just thought about this too. Like, there's a lot of training organizations as well that trains. I know that there are men in this class as well, or call as well. But in terms of women organizations like Emerge, or Emily's List, training women and helping, because sometimes it's like, for me personally, like I said, I never thought of running. And if I knew that, I would have gotten some of or participate in some of these organizations and trainings. But after I ran, actually, and I loved the experience that I had, even though I lost, I actually lost by the number, but I felt like I won, because I felt like, for me, it was winning when I had calls from young women from all over the country saying, I grew up the same way as you. I was told the same thing, that not to get into politics, but now I'm studying political science because I want to run as well. Things like that. I felt like, that was winning to me. That's what I wanted to do. It wasn't, so for me, that was important. And after running, I realized that there's so many organizations that can actually help you. So I would actually encourage utilizing those, and they have free seminars. And so I think they're great. So I would definitely highly recommend it.
Excellent point. I'm glad you mentioned that, Bopha. I appreciate it. So the next question I'm going to ask is, what was your process for developing a compelling and persuasive message for your campaign? And what platforms have you utilized to ensure your message was widespread?
I guess I'll kick it off again. I think you have to really draw from your personal story. I mean, you have to be genuine. You cannot come up with something that's flaky or something that it doesn't speak to who you are. So I think that was the first thing I do for my personal story. And at the beginning it was difficult because as my personal story, there are so many of the same. And I felt it was, you know what, this is cookie cutter. There's a lot of immigrants who have shared the same experience that me, and then I realized that it's a way to connect with people, and you need to be able to connect with people. You need to be able to relate to people, and you need to be able to speak to people's issues. So I think that was one of the things, both my personal professional experiences and my journey. It's powerful. And I've heard that, I started from grassroots. I did a lot of programmatic stuff. I did activism. I did system change. I've done policies. Now I'm managing, millions of dollars from the federal government. So I think that journey, it's important for people to showcase who I am and what I bring to the table. I think it's been also just relying on those, not only the people around you, but people who have been in the field. Like I spoke, the first person I spoke to when I decided to run was now Senator DiZoglio, who was my state rep at that time. And she lives near my house. And we sat down and we've done, we've come up with a couple of policies that she wanted to do around domestic violence. And I had a conversation with her. And she also had a really difficult time as a woman at the beginning in her field. So I think that sort of also honed in for me. So having the mentors sort of share their thoughts as you're developing your messaging, it's important. The campaign should have a theme. So my slogan is right time, right choice. There's a reason for it. And anybody could interpret that in any different way. Right time for the city of Lawrence, because there hasn't been a female mayor for a long time. There has never been a Latina mayor for a long time. Right time because of all the work that has happened and the progress that we've seen. I've been a part of a lot of that. So I think that the new leader needs to move that agenda forward, because we cannot afford to go backwards. Lawrence is a city of a lot of challenges. We're a city, a gateway city, an immigrant city. We're the second poorest community in the Commonwealth. I mean, there are so many things going against us, but also there's a lot of strengths in us. We're very resilient. We're very, resourceful. We're very powerful. We come together. And I think that that's the messaging also. It's the right time for that, a right choice because of, my journey and where I've been and what I bring to the table. So I think that has been one of the things. And then also, the package, right? You have to sell your package. This is a marketing game. And so how do you market yourself? So I was very lucky to get a really great consultant, actually through Senator Feingold, who's been a cheerleader, because that's the other thing I've been blessed. My journey has really helped me build these relationships throughout the years, where I've had the endorsement of two female, state reps, Tammy Govea and Christina Minicucci, who's my state rep, who was at the board for the YWCA. Safathia Thekin, who's the mayor for Gloucester, who I sat with her at the Essex County Commission for the Status of Women. The first city council, female Latina city council for the city of Lawrence was Julia Silverio. She's also supported me. So I think that it's been, those endorsements have also helped to drive the message home and do the marketing. And then I was the first, the one thing that I want to send across the table is that I am a professional. I'm running this campaign as a professional. And that's what stands out too with my campaign. The first website was mine. It was up. It was done in Spanish. The first Facebook page was mine. It was out. Now we have Instagram. Now we have Twitter. Now we have all these other platforms that we're trying to use because we want to appeal to different groups. And so I'll stop here, but I think that's what I can bring to this question.
I don't know what else to add because Vilma had already said everything already. Senator, I'm not sure if you would like to go, but I think
happy to. Yeah, Vilma, that was fantastic, because that's exactly what we've what we do, what we've had to do. I will tell you, I too had a really three consultants actually. So one was messaging and one was on the campaign side. Vilma, you mentioned it earlier that when you are campaigning, you have to realize that if someone doesn't vote, they're probably not going to go out and vote for you. And so it's, I mean, I could tell you, look back at, we can look back at the voter list. And see who voted and who didn't. And it's going to be the same people, election to election, who just don't go out to vote. But I will tell you, with my journey, again, I ran against, there were three other opponents, two from Peabody, one who was an attorney who was a former state rep, very well known in Peabody, and Peabody's the biggest community in my district, the most voters, and a governor's counselor, again, someone who was very popular. And then there was a gentleman that was running from Salem who hadn't had any type of experience. So I knew that I had to outwork. I did. I started knocking on doors in March in my North Face coat and mittens and a hat. And I had knocked two complete communities before my opponents even went out the door to start knocking on doors, because I knew I had to outwork my opponents to be able to get elected. I wasn't going to be able to raise this much money, although I was successful at raising a decent amount of money, but I was outspent quite a bit, and brought it right down right to the primary. The race was decided in the primary, although will tell you, I had a Republican opponent. I never met him. He never raised a penny. He did not campaign. He just put his name on the ballot. I tried to meet him. He wasn't interested. And so the race was decided in the primary. But back to Vilma's points, messaging, your platform, and my message, my theme was hard work and commitment. I had brought that up from my city council theme. And I've known in Salem for my hard work and commitment to the job. I was everywhere, and I continue to bring that commitment to the state Senate, because again, and Vilma and Bopha both repeated it. If you're going to run, it is a big commitment, and it's a time commitment. It will take time away from your family, so. There are things to talk about, and I'm happy to sit down with anybody and share my experience. And I do that, when I'm being contacted right now by some city council candidates in my district who are running, have thrown their hat in the ring, women who want some pointers, and I'm very upfront about how to. I can tell you how to get it done. Absolutely. And but it is a big time commitment, and folks need to know that as well.
Can I just add that I do have right now. I have secured two firms that work with me right now for direct media, and that's important in digital media. And they haven't done anything yet, but they sit with me every week. During that, weekly, we have just quick calls to talk about what's going on, and they give me pointers. Chris Esposito from Dover, who used to be at Emma's list. He's amazing. And then Meredith Kelly and Trey Nix from Declaration Media, who do digital media. And they have worked with, people from, and Juana Matias's, congressional races and presidential races. I mean, so they come with a lot of knowledge. And I mean, I'm very, very blessed that the people that I have been able to secure, including my campaign manager, Ryan Schaefer, who's young, but it's, brings a different perspective to the field. So I think that's just the one thing I wanted to add. I think that's important.
And I think in hearing both Wilma and Senator Lovely, one of the things that I like to mention, Wilma had mentioned this early on in terms of volunteering and getting involved. And I think that comes to play. And it's really important when you're trying to get your message across and having, you know, a team around you that could help to articulate who you are, because you can't do it alone. You know, you basically, when you're running a campaign, you are the candidate, but it's you can't do it all. And sometimes it's like hiring you know, hiring people to help you who might not know your you know, your might not really know you, might be communicating things differently, where when you're volunteering and when you're involved with people, it's like it's these people that help to go door to door and really advocating for you. I think it's so important as well. So there's a number of things which these ladies have already said, but I think it's so important as well in terms of like the field, like the groundwork, and helping that message across, in you know, in the door to door and things like that as well.
Thank you. So the next question is specifically about fundraising. So money is really important for your campaign. So what are some of the strategies that you all have found that have been really effective to fund your campaign?
I could go for this one. I think my first race, it was really tough, because I was a part of a lot of nonprofit, and and I actually do sales and business development for work, and I'm not shy about asking for money for other people. But then when it came to my own campaign and myself, and I thought I was asking it for myself, initially I couldn't do that, and it was tough. And then I felt like the community that I was a part of, you know, I was told like you need to ask people for this big amount, right? The most, the max. But I felt like the community that that I serve, like they can't afford that, and I know that, and I feel like I felt awkward to even say that because I know they can't, you know, they can't do that. But I think once you get into it and you realize that, you know, this is not asking people to donate to you. It's about a cause that you represent and that you're helping to champion, that they care about, and messaging it that way. I think I learned as I went along to not be shy about that, because you're not really giving it to me, you're giving it to help me make a difference, help in education, in whatever that you care about that I could champion for. So I think that got easier, but there's different ways. You know, we did fundraising. Well, where you know, as I mentioned as well, it was hard to ask for that big dollars, but I think also to realize that in addition to those big like the small dollars matter as well. You know, if you can get a large amount of people in the community that could help you, that matters as well. So I feel like having to kind of tailor that, and you know, asking different people what they can give, that's you know, that makes them feel good, not like you know, can you give me this big amount? It's what you feel like you know, what's right for you. And like I said, there's different ways that you can do it: social media, emails, fundraising events. And now it's hard, as Vilma and Senator Lovely said earlier, with virtual events. But you know, it's just not being afraid to ask for it, and asking what is right for the people, but also asking as well if they could host events, or if they could help to ask their friends to, and helping, asking their friends, asking them to share it with their friends about your race and why it's important for them to contribute.
So for me, it's a little different because I can ask. I cannot ask for money. I am a public employee. So, but my grassroots background has really come to play a huge part in how I ask. So it's about getting people motivated about your campaign. It's about getting people motivated about what you want to do. It's about connecting with people. I think that that's the basic of it. But it's also about call time. And Ryan will tell you, my campaign manager, how much I love call time. I'm sure you all love call time. It's the dreadful thing to do, but it's needed. And I think that 70% of call time, and it's very difficult for me because I work full time and I'm a department head. I have one of the largest departments within the city, but you have to figure it out. I figure it out. I get in at 8:30, 4:30, I'm out. I skip lunch if I have to because I have to be out 5 to 8, 8:30. It's my time for campaigning. And we build in about 10 hours a week faithful. And it has paid off because I can tell you in the first quarter, I never thought I would be able to do that. We actually surpassed our goal by $10,000 or $15,000. I don't remember. And so there's power in that. It's about creating your own universe of people. Start with your family, with your friends who already believe in you, and then start to grow your circle. And the first thing I did when I started this, and nobody told me, it was just natural. I just created this Excel sheet and I started with family, friends, church, this, and I created this group. And that's how I started. But having the blessing and the endorsement of your former mayor and having him share his connections definitely pays off, because people who believed in him and gave to him, knowing that he's endorsing me, has opened up a lot of doors for me. Get a call time manager. You have to have somebody on you, because otherwise it's very easy to give up call time. Very easy. Like I have call time 6 to 8 tonight. There's no excuses for it. Ryan will call me and we'll make sure that I'm on it. And he's on the other side. And you know what we figured out? I do the whole intro, I do everything else. And I say, you know what? I'm unable to do this, but my campaign manager is here through this Zoom. And then I put the phone on the mic and Ryan makes the ask, and believe me, 3, 4 out of 10 times we'll get money. Every day we got money coming in. The other thing I will say is stay organized. You have got to be organized, especially if we're working full time, especially as women, as mothers. We have a lot of other responsibilities that no matter how much you fight and say, you know what, we live in an equal world, we don't, because it's not. We have our own things, right? Bundling has paid off for me big time. I have people in the community that I've known for so long that say, you know what, I would love to raise money for you. I have one contractor that has been a family friend. Him alone raised like $10,000. So bundlers are great because it saves you time, it saves you money, and then you can always follow up with a phone call to say, you know what, thank you to the people that actually gave you a check or donated. Events are great if we weren't in COVID, right? I've had 2 or 3 online events. They have not been so successful. They've been more successful at getting to know me and ask questions of me and understand my platform than it is about giving me money. So I try to balance those out a little bit. And endorsements. I mean, get yourself, people say endorsements don't get you votes. No, they don't. But they do give you a credibility, a level of credibility, and open doors for you that probably will not open up by themselves. So I think that I'll stop here so that Senator Loughlin can share her points.
So those are great, Bopha and Vilma. I'm going to repeat all of that, but what I'll tell you is your campaign committee is put together for a reason. And, so I will tell you right now, I don't have an active campaign committee because I haven't had an active campaign. I haven't had a campaign actually since I've been in office. But when I do have an active campaign, the campaign committee is very important. So those are people that assemble with you, about a dozen people. And they will go out, and again, there's bundlers, as Vilma had said, and so they will reach out into the community for you. I really love in-person events. We haven't been able to do one of those in COVID, but I prefer those. I like to see people. I like to be with them. Usually we have, 100, 150 person event, and a lower dollar amount, or sometimes we'll tier it. Depending on people's affordability. I don't want to turn people away because it might be too expensive for them to come. So we will tier the event and maybe have a scene, especially for a senior who's many seniors who want to be at the event, but they're not going to be able to afford even $100, and we want them there. Call time, absolutely one of the hardest things to do. I will admit that as well. And you have to have a person literally there with you, with the pre-prepared sheet of names and phone numbers. And you're going right down, you have your script, and you are literally asking for money. That's the hardest part, and that is it is an absolute commitment that you have to make to be able to do it. Endorsements, I've been so proud to receive the endorsement of, Mayor Driscoll and then State Rep John Keenan when I first ran in the Senate, and many of my colleagues on City Council, former and current, and I've feel so fortunate to be able to receive endorsements when I run. But I will tell you that the fundraising is the hard part, but it's the most necessary part. Vilma, you mentioned Senator Feingold. I think he is an excellent colleague, and he's very good at this. He's very organized, and he has mentored me as well. And so, ask someone else who's in office how they do it. And see if they'll mentor you how to do that as well.
Yeah, and I think also, kind of do some research on that office as well before you run, because different office, it's like, there's different budget, and it could be whatever where you're running, typically, it's much more expensive, or at a different place, it might be less. So it all depends as well, and look into kind of studying how much other candidates have actually spent. And then when you're running, whether you're a well-known candidate or not, how much you have to spend or add to that, and and again, just being able to share with donors like what you're using it for. I found that when we did campaigns where we say, we need this certain amount of money for palm cards to do this, people were willing to give and to donate to certain to things like that, or for volunteers. So communicating that. And I'm reading the chat box, and this is great. I love that Wilma and her campaign person is giving the website, so I will definitely be donating to you. I love it. And this is a perfect example of not being afraid to ask and to bring it up. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So I realize we only have 10 more minutes, and I haven't allowed the students to ask questions. So I do want to definitely address one of the questions in the chat from Fallon, who's actually considering running and actually threw her hat in the race in Lowell. So one of the questions that she asked, yes, is when it comes to cutting the turf and going out into the community and canvassing, how do you address people with opposing views from your campaign? So feel free, whoever wants to start.
I'd be happy to start. So, you can disagree without being disagreeable. We hear, I'll give you an example. We hear from constituents every day. They want to let us know their views on issues, and we may not line up, so I will talk to them, and we will have good discussions. We don't get to agree at the end, but we don't need to be disagreeable about it either. I will tell you, though, there is an occasional constituent who feels so passionate about their position, and if I'm not, with the, on the same side, that it can be difficult. But I just have a good demeanor, and I just say, I'm sorry that we don't agree on this particular issue, but I certainly appreciate you calling or and weighing in and letting us know. It's very important. And I do tell this to everyone. It's very important that we hear from our constituents on where they land on certain issues, because that helps inform me as their representative in government on how to vote on certain issues. Now, there are things like I am pro-choice, so, and we hear from many constituents who are not, so they make their their issue known, and I thank them, and then we move on. But most people, I think, just want to be heard, and even if you're not on the same page.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to listen. Um, I think it's important to practice and tailor your communication according to where you are, but not to lose your authenticity and where you stand. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't change my views just because someone is opposing of it, but at the same time, like I would tailor my conversation in regards to how they bring things up and then bring it back to your message. You know, I think it's always important to bring it back to your messaging, why you're running, and articulate that. Um, I think it's also important to know that some people might not vote for you no matter, you know, and understand how much time you have. So when you're doing these turfs and door to door, knowing that, you know, if uh, if you're spending time over someone that might not be voting for you anyways, it's not gonna be a good use of your time. So I think kind of realizing that you know, also like learning if the conversation is not going well, just listen and move on. But also I think it's important to just you know, kind of uh, uh, you know, be able to tailor that and always ask for the votes, like you know, whether in any conversation reminding them you know, and asking for it, because I think a lot of people assume as well that you know, they're gonna get the vote, or they're with me, or you know, they're gonna help or whatever, when in reality it's like, you know, people want to be asked. But I think it's important to know that some people will always have an opposing view, and it's okay, and you might not get it, but know when to also stop as well and move on, because you can't spend so much time with someone who's going to oppose and not vote for you.
I'm sorry, I was answering the students some of the questions. I love it. I think that you need to be aware of what are those buttons that trigger you, right? For me, it's any injustice. You want to see the lioness come out, don't mess with my kids. Like that's the first thing. So I need to know that. I need to know that sexism pushes my buttons. I need to know that oppression pushes my buttons. And also, because I work with the city government, probably for someone who doesn't work within city government or who's not directly responsible for the things that they're saying, you know what, they're not doing enough with the parks. When I know for a fact that every year I'm managing 3 park projects, but people may not know that information. And so I have learned to count till 10, breathe, listen, because active listening is absolutely important. It's one of those skills that you really need to have if you're going to be doing this work. You need to be able to listen, even if you don't agree. But I have to tell you 2 stories. One is this weekend we went to collect nomination signatures, for my nomination papers. And I was one at a corner store, and this older, Caucasian woman came up to me, and I said, hi, how are you? And introduced myself and say, you know what, I'm running for mayor for the city of Lawrence. I'm the only female running. And I just do my whole spiel, and she came back strong, very nicely, but strong. And basically what the last thing she said to me was, that look at our vice president. Is she a Latina? And I said, no, I believe she's Asian. She has different races. She's multiracial. good example of the things that I face. So people who are very strong about my opponent. Well, so-and-so it's collecting money for this and that. And I say, you know what, that's great. I think we all have a role to play in this community. My role comes from investing $5-6 million that came from the federal government directly to the people that need it so that can be helped.
Wilma, you're muted.
Was it a long time? I think hopefully it was just the end. But I'll end it there.
Fantastic.
So we only have about 2 minutes. I don't know if we have any time for last minute questions. I'm actually wondering if the three of you, is it okay if students reach out to you and ask you questions and
Yeah, of course.
email you directly or contact your chief of staff? And that would be wonderful. So if you don't mind putting that in the chat, we would greatly appreciate it. And I just want to thank you, all three of you, for being here today. I know you're all going hard with your jobs, and there's a lot going on today. And so for taking the time to meet with our students, to share your knowledge and really pave the way for students who want to run for office, not just women, but all of our students. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here today. And if you have any last words, feel free to pipe in. So thank you so much.
Well, my last word is if you're thinking about running, I would definitely encourage you to explore and do it, because I think, it's what, I think it's important for all voices, everyone to first of all, to participate, to be engaged. If, it's a wonderful way to make a difference. And, it's very tough, it's challenging, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. It's, I feel like it's amazing knowing that, I have the opportunity to make a difference, to change someone's life, to be able to listen and actually help shape policies and things to make lives better for people. And I think, feel free to reach out if there's anything I can do to help. But I think it was one of my running for Congress and even running for select board. It's one of the toughest things that I've ever done, but at the same time, it's been one of the most rewarding experiences. It's been one of the things that I'm proud of. I love what I'm doing. So I would highly recommend anyone that is thinking about it to definitely explore it and do it.
And I will be more selfish, and I'm going to say, come join me. Come on. I can use your volunteer bodies. I need people to help me knock on doors and make phone calls. I think that this is, if you're exploring this opportunity, it's a great opportunity that's now happening now, where you can gain some experience. So I put my information on the chat, right in the chat box. It's vilmaformayor@gmail.com. and my phone number is there, and then www.vilmaformayor.com. That's my website. But you can start today. You can start supporting females that are running for office today. And this is going to be a tremendous historic race here locally. And it's a very unique community that campaigns are run very differently here. So if you want a good experience, come join me. I think that's the best thing I could ask you to do.
Wilma, I want to knock on doors for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you. I definitely want to go knock on doors for you.
And you know what? Vilma is right. If you want to get campaign experience, volunteer for a campaign and volunteer for Vilma's campaign. Because you know what? It's door knocking, it's phone calls. It's we sent out letters to everybody that we met, personally signed by me. I did, and a little note. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of volunteer hours. And so good candidates like Vilma and Bopha, need that type of help. So if you're thinking of running, get that experience by volunteering on a campaign, and that will absolutely help shape what your campaign will look like when you decide to run. And definitely reach out to any of us. And Vilma, I wish you all the best in your campaign. I'm going to absolutely start to pay attention up your way. And I wish you the best. And you've mentioned a couple of my really great colleagues. And Bopha, I look forward to also following you. And maybe we can get together during a campaign or offline as well. And I wish everybody the best. And thank you to all the students today, and to Katie and Professor Rouget and Cynthia. So great to see you always. And I see Dr. Coughlin as well, one of my favorite former professors. So thanks, everybody.
Ryan just dropped a link to the volunteer form, so he's on it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, all of you. This has been great, and I hope we can all stay connected. So thank you for attending, and enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.